Then the author goes to a very interesting discussion. How are these dispositions developed? Patience, for example, generosity, humility, being humble, and so on and so forth. How can we develop them? How does someone become generous versus someone being greedy? How is it? These dispositions, how are they developed inside the human beings? He says there's two ways. The first way is through genetics, meaning it's passed down through your parents, for example. It's in your genes. You're born a generous person. You're born a greedy person. That's why they say many of these traits, they are passed down. If your parents were generous, if they were brave, most likely you're going to be brave and courageous. If they had a good temper, they're very calm, you're going to be the same. If they had a bad temper, always angry, most likely I'll be the same. So the first way that these dispositions are developed is through genetics, naturally. You have people that are naturally good-tempered, calm, patient. Others, no, they're naturally impatient and angry since their childhood. So they did nothing to develop this. It was just there when they were born through genetics. You know, in the Arabic culture, the embodiment, the greatest example of someone being generous is Hatam al-Ta'i, who lived right before the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hatam al-Ta'i was the most generous person of his time. They say that his mother, after he grew to be one of the most generous people of his time and of all times, she said that, you know what, my son Hatam, he was generous, since he was a child. Since he was a baby, I could tell he's generous. How? She said that I noticed he would never drink when I want to breastfeed him unless he had a twin brother, unless his twin brother would also be fed at the same time, or else he would not drink. He would not eat until his brother would eat. But then she says, subhanAllah, his brother, his twin brother, he was greedy. When he wanted to drink, he would not allow his brother to drink. When he wanted to eat, he wanted it all for himself. She would say that this was natural, in their genes, since they were babies. When they grew, the same thing happened. That's why they say that Hatam al-Ta'i, he used to have in his house daily meals given to people. His house would be open every day, and whoever would come to his diwan, to his house, to his guest house, he would give them food. So they say one day he couldn't come, so he asked his brother to supervise and to take care of everything. So he was sitting, giving food. He noticed some guy came, he ate, he left, he went out, he came back again. Once he came back again, he told him, his brother, the brother of Hatim, he looked at him, he told him, you already came, you ate, get out of here. So he kicked him out. Now that man, he told him, every day I do this and your brother doesn't tell me anything. The first time you see this, and it's not even yours, all this food belongs to your brother, this bothers you and you kick me out, subhanAllah, you're so greedy. He goes, this man who wanted to eat twice, he goes to Hatim, he tells him the story, and then Hatim says, subhanAllah, my mother tells me that ever since we were kids, we were so different. So sometimes it's through genetics. We do nothing to really develop it. It's just there when we're born. It just happens naturally. This is the first way that these dispositions are developed in the human being. The second way, is a way in which you can seek it. The second way is a way in which you can go after it. And the author says, through repetition, through practice. As they say, practice or repetition makes perfect. How do you make the body strong? You work out. And if you were to truly analyze what people that are in the gyms, when they work out, what are they doing? They're just repeating the same act again and again and again. They're lifting weights up and down, maybe 1,000 times, maybe 5,000 times. Sit-ups, it's just the same act repeated once again. It's just repetition. So once this act is repeated thousands of times, you build those muscles, those biceps. Now, it's difficult in the beginning, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes until it becomes your second nature. That's why the hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, Al-'adatu tab'un thani. When you make something a habit, eventually it becomes second nature. This is both with good habits and bad habits. If you make something a good habit, every day you do it, becomes second nature, becomes very easy for you. And usually it's difficult for you to lose that habit. Likewise with some bad habits, when we learn them, it's difficult for us to lose that bad habit. This is with the body. With the soul, if I want to make my soul strong, I want to develop these good qualities, there are certain acts I have to repeat many, many times. For example, I'm a greedy person. I'm born naturally greedy. What do I do? What I do is I try to help the people. So for example, let's say I'm greedy. I was born greedy. What do I do about this? The author says repetition. Do acts of kindness, acts of generosity. Make it a habit to always give people. Eventually, the author says, you will start developing the quality of generosity. Now it's going to take time. Maybe you're going to have to give 1,000 times, 5,000 times, even if it's a small increment. Doesn't, even if each time I give $1, it doesn't matter. The point is, I have to make this a habit for my nafs that I always give. Eventually, it's going to be second nature. Now, this repetition, it's part of it. There's other factors to also developing these virtues that we will speak about, like knowledge. The more you understand about the benefits of generosity and the